Inside Leominster is brought to you in part through the generous support of N.P. Crowley Company Incorporated and by Landmark Self-Storage in Leominster. www.landmarkselfstorage.com.
Home and all those guys. Hello and welcome to Inside Leominster. My name is Dean Mazzarella, Mayor for the city, and yes, we're live this afternoon right here at our brand new, immaculate, clean, still got that new smell. Right, Carl? Yeah. It's beautiful in here. And our phone number is 978-534-1626. As always, take your calls. We do have a guest today. We have a fun guest. We'll be able to do a little interviewing and Q&A. Usually I'm on the other side. But yes, we will be here, take your calls, and lots to talk about. We'll update you on the COVID numbers and the tests that the state gave last year. We're running a clinic as we speak now, just closed a minute ago. That is the Last Mile Clinic. That is specifically for those having a difficult time getting an appointment. Might be a language barrier, but the state specifically has provided funding and resources as well as vaccines for those who struggle to get a vaccine. Managed to get a vaccine for a lady today, elderly, having a bit of dementia, really struggling to find a vaccine. Had a couple of nieces and nephews trying to help her, wasn't able to do so. And so, again, we get her into the clinic, and that's what it's all about. Speaking what it's all about, on this rainy day, one can only imagine what those getting ready for the Masters for next year are doing. But let's find out from none other than, Art from the Art Report.
I'm about as close to the Masters as I am to the moon.
Hey, they tuck it into the sand on occasion.
Okay? That's for started. And, you know, I was a little depressed with the weather, no golf. I got a little bit of tendonitis in the elbow until I read an article today on John Daly's gambling habits. Are
really?
You serious? Listen, he was in one tournament. They paid him $750,000 for coming in second. Hung around, got his check, and went right to wins in Las Vegas with it.
No.
Went on a $5,000 slot machine.
Wow.
Lost that. Went and got a line of credit for another $750,000 and blew that.
No.
He estimates himself that he's lost over $50 million gambling.
That's terrible.
That is beyond my. Well, I saw a woman go through $100,000 at Foxwood, so
is he?
I can understand it.
Is he broke?
No, he's still doing. Well, he's pretty sick right now. He's got bladder cancer, and he gave up booze. He went on a diet. This is a classic. In college, his golf coach told him, "You got to go on a diet, John. You're getting too big for golf." Oh, all right. So he gave up eating food and drank Jack Daniels and smoked cigarettes. Lost 40 pounds in about 3 days instead of about 20 days. Jack Daniels and cigarettes.
Oh.
Look at that. You serious?
And he comes in. And he comes in second.
Before I forget, leaving Day Street Daly, I was trying to plan how to get in and out of North Leominster with all the construction going down there. But you know what? The classic traffic people of the Leominster Police Department, I don't know what they're doing, but 3 or 4 occasions now I've come out on day and the traffic was backed up to Johnny Appleseed. Our light went green. I pulled out. Under 5 minutes, I'm heading up Route 2. It was wonderful.
Well, we spent a lot of time putting together traffic plans because we know it can happen. Now, when we started this, it was pre-COVID, so we were really anticipating much more traffic, but it's still getting busy. I just come in off of Route 2, and Mechanic Street was already backed up down to Middle Street on Mechanic Street, and that's like a Friday night. Now, what happens often is if there's an accident or something going on Route 2, which there wasn't, people would get off Route 2 at the Mechanic Street exit and come all the way into town and then go through and catch Route 2 on the other side of Kmart. So that's how I could usually tell something's going on Route 2 coming westbound.
Yeah, and these times that I'm talking about on 13 were quite scattered, so it wasn't because of the rush.
Right.
There
Good.
was a rush.
Good
but
news.
It was accompanied by, well, it was clear to me that I was watching them as I, pardon me, sat in traffic, and man, they just kept the flow going beautifully.
Good.
And if they'd stop people, I didn't see anybody upset. And every time I went by one of them, I dropped the window and said, "Thanks, doing a good job, guys."
Good.
I'm dying to see Frank there. I keep buying an extra coffee for these guys.
He was on.
When I get there, they're too busy.
We were on. Let's see. He was on Mechanic and Mount Pleasant Ave today. We're regrinding. We're grinding and paving Mount Pleasant Ave. That street goes up by the old bowling alley up there. That goes up in the top of town. It comes out by Duncan.
Yep.
Mount Pleasant Ave.
Okay. Yeah. I know where that is.
We're doing a bunch of streets. We're doing Merriam Ave, some of it. We're doing Lindell Ave. We're doing a bunch of streets, Theodore, and we're doing a bunch. And then we'll do another batch come the fall, hopefully early fall.
Well, about a month ago, I was down at Leominster Credit Union early in the morning, and waiting for them to open. I was in line, and I'm sitting there daydreaming. Somebody tapped the window, and I said, "Uh-oh, it's either a money beggar or I'm about to get held up." So I slowly turned. It was Frank. He was going down there to start to do traffic control.
Right.
Because the inside was shut down.
Oh.
First words out of his mouth, I dropped the window down. "Art, how you doing?" I said, "Good." He said, "We had some fun, didn't we, up at Johnny Appleseed?" I said, "We sure did." And we reminisced.
Yep.
What a perfect example of what a police officer should be.
And there's lots of them. Trust me, we have
I'm sure there are.
And right now we have a good crew. Should be.
Having worked with them, I can honestly say it was a total joy. Through sleet, snow, rain, he had a smile, and a classic. I'm out in the middle of the road. A car goes in back of me. Thank God I hadn't told the people to come yet. Frank's up 2 houses up. He goes right over, pulls the car over, does the ticket, comes walking back towards me laughing. And I said, "You think that's funny the way that car went behind me?" He says, "No, it's the story." I said, "What's the story?" He says, "You having a bad day?" She says, "I sure am. This is my second ticket for a crosswalk violation in school today." Yes. I could write a book.
Yeah.
He was laughing. He says, "I couldn't believe it." He said, "Well, you went behind the guy." She says, "Yeah, but I wasn't close to him."
No.
There's logic. I could be right on the hood.
She's perfectly.
Summer Street. I didn't want to go to Summer Street.
She had a perfect reason for that.
Having said all of that, please don't snow in Gardner.
Thank you. Nah, I don't know. I mean, the sun's so strong. If it comes out for a second, it'll be gone.
Yeah,
we'll get them wet snowflakes that you catch in your mouth and they dissolve.
Yep.
All right.
All the guys that do the traffic down at the lower part of 13, good job. Thank you. And good night.
Good job is right. All right. That was Art from the Art Report. As always, an interesting conversation. We're going to take it right back. Yep. We're going to take a short break, right? You guys ready for a short break? And we'll be right back? Is that what I meant to say? Yeah, I said it all in one. All right, Wayno, let's go. We'll take a short break, and then we're coming back, and we have a guest. Our phone number hasn't changed. It's 978-534-1626. You're welcome to call, and and we'll be updating you on everything else that's happening in and around Leominster. We'll be right back.
Going around, but we did find one special one that goes along with what we're talking about this month, and I guess every month. Mrs. Bradford?
Every month is a kindness month.
Every month is a kindness month, and every month is a reading month.
Yes.
So we've got 2 very special things to talk about. Deanne Besnia and her husband Dave put in the first little free library in Leominster.
Hello, my name is Deanne Besnia, and this is my little free library. Little free libraries began when a gentleman wanted to honor his mother, and so he built a little library box and put it outside of her house. She was a retired teacher, and she loved to read. And he found the neighbors liked it. People liked to stop by and take a book or put a book in. And so people would ask him to build them one. So he did. And it kind of grew from there. Then about a year later, he teamed up with another gentleman, and they were trying to look for a project to do together. And that's when they came up with the idea of building these little library boxes.
There you go. There's a little bit of the story, right? Did you know that, Keith? Did you ever know that story? Anyway, we're back here at Inside Leominster, 978-534-1626, and we're with Sherman Whitman. And if you've probably heard his voice a million times, but you've never actually seen him, that's the fun part about
that's the frightening part. What are you
interviewing somebody that's been on radio their whole life, or just about their whole life, and then people like, that's him, like, because Sherman has this very soft, tender voice, very clear. He speaks very clearly. He paid attention in school. He was in school. Anyway,
I had my good days and my bad days in school. What can I say?
Were you one of those fidgety kids that couldn't sit down in the classroom very much? You needed to get up and move around?
I managed to stay put in my seat.
A chill guy.
I was good at that.
Well, anyway, thanks for coming on. I know you get up early. You go to bed early at night, so you can get up really early in the morning. There's a whole bunch of things we'll talk about in a couple minutes, but about what goes on behind the scenes, because you got to get there early, you got to get prepped for the news. Yeah. What are you going to talk about for the day? It's a long, I mean, I do an hour here, and I don't know if I could stay here for 3 or 4 hours.
First of all, thanks for having me.
Sure.
This is new territory for me. Hi, Leominster. Great, Sherman, Leominster. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. This is a whole new experience for me because I'm so used to just talking to people. I'm used to asking the questions. Now I'm answering the questions, so I'm going like, oh boy, I'm not sure I'm ready for this.
We're chatty. So let's start at the very beginning. So you're a Michigan kid.
Ann Arbor, Michigan is my hometown. Home of the Michigan Wolverines. Go Blue! I'll always be doing that. And home of an event that started back during my teenage years, what was called the annual Ann Arbor Hash Bash. Enough said about that, right?
Yeah, I won't go any further on that.
Yeah, we'll go any further than that.
And your family, how many kids in your family?
Family was 4 brothers. And all the credit goes to my dad, my mom, my dad especially, because my dad during the 60s was what you call one of those single parents, when people didn't think about dads as single parents unless you were watching programs on TV like The Courtship of Eddie's Father.
But that was only on TV.
Or Bachelor Father. But my dad was that in real life. My dad raised 4 boys after May 13th, 1965, which was his birthday.
Right.
He lost his wife that day. I was 11 years old at the time.
That's incredible.
And somehow Dad kept the 4 of us together. And, and heaven knows, we didn't make it easy for him.
No, I know, but still, you have a little pity on the man, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's young to lose your mom. And, and that was, in fact, I can't ever remember a case that I know of. And I grew up in the 60s and the 70s that I can say that I remember a dad being able to, hang on to his kids and work and be able to bring them up and bring them up properly.
But he did, and he would take us all to baseball games. Each of us were playing in Little League. He would go to all of our games. He was there for everything we were doing. And that's one thing I remember I'm always grateful for. And when I became a father, I did my best to be there for my daughter every step of the way. Although there were times that I was working, he was like, how am I going to do this and still get everything done? But for the most part, I could say I did.
And 4 boys.
Yeah,
I saw some pictures. You've posted pictures in the past.
Oh, yeah. You see the pictures on Facebook with the 4 of us as kids.
Yeah.
And you see one in the back, this one kid who looks like a cute face, like I'm hiding in the background in the pictures.
That's you.
And then there's another picture of us from the summer of 1980, where you see the 4 of us grown, we're wearing our suits. And then you see me in a three-piece suit with a big woolly fur on my head.
What was that day? You going to a wedding or Easter or something?
No, we're back there to help my father out because there were some tough times there. And so I wound up staying home for a couple of months during the summer of 1980.
To help him out.
To help him out. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it in a heartbeat just because.
And what did he do for work?
My dad was a mason.
Really?
A mason, yeah.
Wow.
Work construction. When you look at Ann Arbor, southeastern Michigan, and look at a lot of the buildings that stand today, it's because of my dad's two hands.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
And none of your brothers picked up the trade?
Well, I did that for a while.
Did you?
Well, in college, I would work during the summers, work construction until...
Mixing mortar.
Mixing mortar,
yeah.
pouring.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. You got a workout in.
Sure.
I love the way the day started. You wake up at 4:35 in the morning, have your breakfast, and then you make sure you got your lunch pail with lunch and everything. And during summertime, it would be like 80, 90 degrees. Didn't care because you're out there working and everything. Day would be done by 2:33. And you get home, you have a good night's sleep. That's one thing.
Hard.
You slept well.
Yeah.
You woke up, the next morning, you were well rested, ready to go. Said, let's do it again. All that changed, I would say, around July of 1993, freshman year in college. I was hired at a radio station in my hometown.
I remember you telling me the story. It's a good story.
Yeah,
you were young. How old were you?
I was 19.
19 years old.
It's funny how it happened where I went to the station in my hometown. I talked to the program director, said, okay, what's it going to take me to get a job here? And this is back in the day where radio stations are a lot different now because back then there weren't computers. There were reel-to-reel recorders, tape recorders. We had turntables.
You had to concentrate.
Yeah, you had to concentrate. You had to do everything. Right. It's a lot easier now. And you had to do editing. You had razor blades and grease pencils. And you had to do everything precisely. If you messed up, it was a total loss.
Yeah. It was a big deal.
Disaster.
Right.
Yeah. It was a major deal, especially when you're cutting up commercials and doing things like that. But what happened was, I told the program,
today you just plug it in.
You plug it in and
you tell it what time to put the commercial on. And remember, if it was any dead air, that was like a mortal sin.
Yeah,
like,
it's still a mortal sin.
But even more so then, it was like, oh, my word, is 2 seconds of dead space.
Yeah. In my case, when I got hired, but before I got hired, asking the program director what I needed, back then you needed to get a license from the Federal Communications Commission.
It was a test and all that.
It was a test. You had to pass 3 elements, 1, 2, and the technical part, element 9. I failed that the first time, so I made a bus ride from Ann Arbor to downtown Detroit to the FCC offices. I passed it. I'm like in celebrating mode.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And so after I got it, I went to the station and I said, okay, I got it. Here's my license. I proudly show my license. When do I start?
This afternoon.
He said, oh, we don't have any jobs here right now. What are you thinking? You think I was going to hire you right away? I went ballistic. I lost my mind.
Did you really?
Because
you went through all that.
I went through all that thinking I had a job. He said what I had to do.
Right.
I went in there, gave him a piece of my mind.
You took it literal.
I took it literally, personally, figuratively. I let him have it with both barrels. I stormed out of the station. About 15 minutes after I did that, I realized, oh boy, I really blew it. I could kiss my career goodbye before it even starts. But 2 weeks later, I get a call. My dad picks up the phone. He says, there's a Charlie Bross who wants to talk to you. He was the program director at the station. And God knows I'm the last person he wants to talk to. But a couple of things, actually 3 things happened. There were not 1, but 2 full-timers who gave notice, said they were quitting, and a part-timer who was leaving the state of Michigan, going to start his career somewhere else. And so he needed somebody desperately. Is there a chance you could come by this afternoon? I said I could be there in 15 minutes. So I got in there.
This is your passion, right?
And so I got in there. He puts me in the studio. All right, this is the board. I'm not going to show you how. You have an idea how to do it. So here's your W-2. Fill it out before you leave. Then he walked out. Didn't say a word, just. But eventually, we got along. Became.
What was the show?
It was
music.
No, it was for a talk program, a program called Community Comment.
So you just.
So I was basically running the board while the host, you there, and I'm answering the phones, taking calls, and adjusting everything, recording as we go.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked. Eventually, we reached an understanding where he had enough faith in me to have me do a music show from a county fair.
Oh, like a live remote.
A live
That's a big
remote,
deal.
which is funny.
You get fans from doing that stuff.
Well, yeah, and what happened was my father happened to be there too. And my dad always wanted me to do something else, be a doctor, be a lawyer, do something else other than radio. Are you kidding me? And so I made the mistake of inviting him into the remote studio while I'm trying to do the show, play music. And what happened was he's talking all the time. I can't keep him quiet. So eventually I had him thrown out of the studio. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just did. And Charlie's looking at me like, you just threw your father out. How could you do that? I said, how am I going to do the show if I don't? So he didn't say another word. I finished the program, and I'm looking around and just seeing my father. I could see, oh boy, I'm a dead man when we're done. I can see him cussing and fussing. I can hear him cussing and fussing too out amongst the crowd. But then he sees a group of people right by where the remote truck is, and he sees the numbers growing, and the people saying they like that kid in there. And so he goes from
now he's proud
to sounding like, that's my son. That's my boy in there. That's my son. That's my boy. That's my boy.
See, I told you, it picked up fans.
And so that's what happened. So when we were done, I'm miserable. I'm in tears, and I just say, Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do and wanted to keep doing everything. But during that process, my throwing him out, my still doing my job, made him a believer in me, and he was my biggest fan.
Wow, that's great. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Sherman Whitman is my guest. He's with radio station here. Not just, they've been based out of Fitchburg, but WPKZ has been around for a long time. It used to be WEIM for a long time.
And now they're getting close to their 80th anniversary, which will be October 1st.
Years. And Frank Filippone just passed away not too many years ago, and he was the general manager of WEIM for a long time, and Ray C. that worked there, and Jack Raymond that worked there. And so, but from that point, you had a long history. You worked on some big radio stations along the way. And I was amazed because when I used to listen to certain stations and I heard you, I always, you always think, I wonder what the guy looks like. You always have a picture in their mind of what the guy looks like. But growing up, something must have motivated you to want to do radio. So who were those people that motivated you? Was it national radio shows or just music? Or?
It was radio stations in my hometown and radio stations nearby in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. They had a lot of radio stations in Detroit.
2 stations in mind, one WJR, which carried
50,000 watts.
50,000 watts, 760, which carried the Detroit Tigers during my formative years, and getting a chance to hear Ernie Harwell. And one of the great things I've been lucky to say, I've been blessed to say, I had a chance to meet him and interview him.
Really?
Yes. And talk about me as a kid again, and thinking, I'm a kid, where's my Stroh's ice cream bar? The reason I say that is because Stroh's beer was the sponsor for Tiger baseball games, but they also had the sense of having an ice cream bar for kids. And when the Tigers played their doubleheaders on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, my dad had a barbecue pit at the house. He built his own barbecue pit. And there were mornings I would wake up and join him in getting everything started before 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd get slab after slab of ribs, chicken. We'd get the pit going. And by 7:30 in the morning, people were waking up in the neighborhood. They'd smell everything cooking, slow cooking in this big old barbecue pit in our backyard. And the words you hear are, Charlie's cooking.
Yeah. The whole neighborhood knew.
And so the whole neighborhood knew, and before you knew it, by 11 o'clock, people were at our house bringing potato salad, vegetable salads, macaroni salads, cornbread.
I'm hungry now.
You name it, they brought anything and everything. Chips, enough ice for the soft drinks for the kids, and ice for the other beverages for the adults. And we're all listening to Ernie on the radio. and Ernie would say, "Hang on to your Stros, we're heading to the 9th inning." And wouldn't you know it, the craziest thing that happens when Ernie would say that, you have the adults going for their can or bottle of Stros beer. You've got kids going in the house, going in the freezer, looking for their Stros ice cream bar.
It worked.
So we're all listening to Ernie call the game in the 9th inning, and here I am with a Stros ice cream bar in my hand, this vanilla ice cream bar with the chocolate coating, and the ice cream's melting in my hands. I didn't care. Ernie said, "Hang on to your Stros." That's all that mattered to me.
Yeah, that's it. And you got to interview him.
And to be able to talk to him.
Did you tell him?
I told him that.
Yeah.
I told him that. He laughed. Yeah. He loved it. It was funny. I talked to him in 1993 when the Red Sox and Tigers were ending their season at Fenway Park.
Right.
And
you had no clue you'd end up here someday.
I know. All that matters to me as far as my career goes is that I'm working. That's all that matters. People say, "Well, you were in Boston. Don't you want to stay in Boston? Don't you want to stay in a big city?" I've done that for over 20 years. Right now, to me, the most important thing is just the fact that, one, I'm able to wake up first thing in the morning, and I go into work. I have a chance to do what I love to do, and it's all I've ever wanted to do, for better or worse.
And you're still doing it. Not many people left.
Since I was 19 years old.
And there are not many people left doing it. They don't have the opportunity. There aren't jobs for them. Everything's programmed. We're fortunate that we have a radio station in the area where there's live broadcasting in the morning. There's real people there. And you're talking about local things. You have local guests. I come on once a month. You have the mayor of Fitchburg, and we talk about all the time. There's very little AM local radio anymore. That's not, people fake laughing on the FM dial.
Right, and a lot of stations go in the area, they want to talk politics all the time. I've thought about that, but people hear that all the day. People need information to start the day, so we try to keep it local. We try to provide information. Something you mentioned, which is right, people like the fact that we give you the traffic updates. And with everything going on. And so I keep remembering that, and people, you're not the only person that said that to me. So I'm grateful for that. And I just give my all, and there are days I get it right. There are days I'll be the first to admit I get it wrong. I screw up. I'm human. What can I say?
So where'd you go? You went from Ann Arbor to where?
From Ann Arbor, once I finished my studies, I came to Massachusetts, summer '77, to Boston. And I worked for a few months as a security guard to make ends meet. And I would, after my overnight shift, I go to stations wearing my guard uniform, looking for work, and they'd see enough of me where finally one station took a chance on me. WEZE, which is at 1260. They were in the Park Square building. Right. And they were playing music, and you had this big building in the studio where you could look in there, you could see the radio station and the person playing the records and everything. They hired me.
But that was big because Boston radio was big. Nationally known. If you say I'm a radio celebrity, where do you work? Boston. It was a big deal. News. They paid more for anchors and news people and radio personalities. They paid more than anywhere else in the country other than California.
In New York City. Right. And during my time at EZE, my claim to fame would be being on the air during the blizzard of '78.
Oh, that's where you were, huh?
That's where I was. Where I was there in the morning during my news shift, and I owed someone a favor. Her name, Deborah Kahn, because she would do the afternoon music show 3 to 7. I owed her a favor, so I said, "Okay, I'll come in and do it just because I owed you the favor."
You weren't going anywhere after that.
Little did I know, I'm looking outside. It's snowing. It's still snowing. It's snowing. Then around 5:30, I get a call from the guy who's supposed to come in between 7 and midnight. I'm trapped at home in Topsfield. I'm stuck here. So I'm there playing music till midnight. They put me up in the hotel, and before I know it, Tuesday, Wednesday, on the air between 5 a.m. and midnight for the day.
Oh, my word.
Thank goodness for Taster's Choice, the ground coffee, the instant coffee. They got me through the couple of days, and the hotel which fed me.
And did you keep playing music, or were you doing updates about the storm?
Music, news. I would take the entire album and play one side, gather information, run the commercials, then put the other side of the album on, and then gather the information. And that's what I did. Then there was a time where I'd take a break during the day, just let the music go and everything else, just to give myself a breather.
Yeah, just rest your eyes.
Yeah.
And then so they played like light music, right?
They were called like soft rock music.
Soft rock. Yeah.
There were a number of soft rock stations, and so we were one of those soft rock stations, so that's what we did. After my time at EZE, I went from soft rock to country.
Who'd you work for then? In the country
Then
station?
a station called WDLW, which was at 1330 on the AM dial. I was there for a good 4 years. And then the station that people call my claim to fame,
WBCN.
or claim to shame, depending on how you thought about the station at the time, the Rock of Boston, there with Charles Laquadera, Ken Shelton,
yeah.
Mark Pareto.
That was big.
That was fun.
Didn't people like freak out when you told them you were working there?
They said, no, you can't work there. It's funny because when people actually see me for the first time, well, their image of me is somebody is like someone who's like 5'6", 5'7".
Right, because you have a very soft
wearing
voice.
who wears glasses,
Yeah.
which I do now, who doesn't wear them back then, and white.
Yeah.
And then they see me, they go, "You're Sherman Whitman, but you can't be Sherman. You're." I say, "Yeah, I know. Go ahead, say it.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah, I know. I was last.
I picked up
last time
on
I
that.
checked, the pigmentation's all there. It's really me, And so that's what happened, and I had a fun time there.
Oh, it must have been a blast.
It was a blast.
How many years did you work there?
I worked there for, let's say, a good 8, 9 years with the company, because I spent 1 year working at their sister station in New York City.
Yeah.
And there are so many stories. I was wondering, like, what should I tell you about my BCN moments? I'll share two. One I've told before. When Ray Flynn was mayor of Boston and Bill Clinton was elected president, Tom Menino was city council president. I'm hosting the Boston Sunday Review for a Sunday morning. He comes in, Ray, it's time for you to move on. He says, Bill, now that you're president, why don't you give Ray a job? Maybe like U.S. ambassador to the Vatican, okay?
Well, you were there?
I was interviewing him.
You were doing the interview.
When he was saying this. And who would have thought that this would happen?
Right.
Like saying goes, be careful what you ask for. And it happened. So the couple of days after it happened, I call and say, Counselor, it's me. He says, oh, no. I said, yeah, I want you to join us Sunday morning on the air.
Right.
And we're going to talk about this. You're not going to bring up that thing. I said, I got to. And so I do. And so I get him on the air. So I say, thank you for joining me. And we're going to start right off the bat. He says, you're killing me. I said, no. I'm not at the bust your chops, because and I know, the whole world knows this was the last thing we ever thought would happen.
Right, exactly.
But it did. And I'm not busting your chops. I'm giving you a for free pass on this, because who knew?
Yeah, right.
But now that it's happened, what was the first thing that went through your mind? And when I said those words, I could hear like a, oh, thank you, God, from him. And the conversation went from there, where we talked about his thoughts about Boston, what he would like to see if he were given the opportunity to serve as mayor full time.
Right. That was Tom Menino.
Tom Menino.
Right. Because that was 1993.
Yes.
Because he got almost a full year in as acting mayor.
As acting mayor.
Because he was council president.
And that set the tone, because there were maybe as many as 10 people who wanted the job. And because he did a good job, people gave him a chance, and he would be mayor of Boston for life. And that was the only job he ever wanted. And yes, he served Boston very well.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What's the second story?
Second story comes from my working in the newsroom at BCN. There were times where I also did sports. Now, you see how big I am. Put the camera there, you see my big gut and everything else. But there were two big dudes at BCN, myself and the late Paul Sferosa, known to listeners at BCN as Tank. He was known as Tank on Sports. And so at first they would say, the Tank called Paul, the Tank called Sherman. And then they said, no, that's not going to work. So they gave me another name for sports. Instead of my being Sherman, who was doing news, I went by the name of Slam, where I'd do the headline and go, I am Slam, and sports is next on the rock. And my
wrestling figure.
Like body slam or whatever, or like a big dive from the top rope. I'm coming to get you. But in this case, this was around the time of the Boston Marathon. I forget whether it was 85 marathon, after the 86 marathon. They were awarding prize money to the athletes. And I didn't realize what I had done, but I'll take this as a moment I'm proud of. And before I say this, there's a thing called you have to watch what you say. Words matter. Be careful with your choice of words because they can do great harm and they can do great good. In this case, it's one of those times where I'm glad I don't do this often, but this is one of those times where I could say maybe I did some good. Because after the marathon ran, I did my sports report, and for the first time ever, I did a commentary about the marathon, how great it was for Boston, but there was something that was missing. Prize money. There was prize money for the male elite athletes.
That's right.
Money for the female elite athletes, but no prize money for the wheelchair athletes.
Right.
And I made a comment that there's something missing, something not fair about this, because you had wheelchair athletes that would set records year after year after year. And I said, BAA, what's fair is fair. Let's save some money, share some money with the wheelchair athletes too.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
So I mentioned that Charles Lacquadera, who's on the air, is like, whoa. Listeners who heard that, whoa. The listener line, they're all going, whoa. You know what you've done to the phones here? People are calling like crazy.
And he had a big audience.
Yeah.
That was a big audience.
So that was a big deal. And before I knew it, people were calling, wanting to talk to me. What do we do? What do we do? We want to help you. Want to make this happen?
Yeah. Wow.
All I said was call the BAA, let them know. This is what we should do. A couple of hours later, the program director came in. Oedipus said, I need to talk to you right now. My office. He was deadly serious. Do you know what you've done? I said, yeah, I think I know what I've done. And so he says, before you ever do this again, I want to see the copy you've written. I want to see your script. Either you do this or you're out of a job. And so I said, I get it. I understand.
So they actually wanted to know what you was going to say. If you were going to say something like that, they actually, you didn't have free reign to be able to just say things like that.
No, it just came out of my mouth.
Right.
It's the first thing
it was a commentary. You were just talking like I'm talking to you.
It's the first thing I thought of. And wouldn't you know it, after I said these things and after the calls of the BAA, they started awarding prize money to the wheelchair athletes.
That's awesome.
And then when the announcement came, there were two of us from the newsroom of BCN, and it was my news director, and she's watching me as I'm there, and some of the wheelchair athletes who are there who are looking at me and they're going, Sherman, dude, thank you. You don't know what this means to us.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And my news director is going like, what did you do? I said, didn't Eddie tell you what I had done? And she said, no. Well, I said, like, you what? And the rest is history. I've never talked about that until now. I've been so reluctant to mention that.
Well, marathons would have been coming up pretty soon,
I've been so embarrassed to say anything about that. But
so you let it slip just saying, hey, how about these poor people that are out there training all year long?
Yeah.
And that takes some training.
Yeah. That more than anything else, I would say, is my BCN moment. And I've said it once, and that's the last time you hear me mention that BCN moment.
Wow, that's a good story. That's
just
good.
the fact that I did that, and I still think about that today, and I keep telling myself, be careful when you open your big mouth.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
Because you never know what's going to happen, and words matter. Words have consequences, and that's so true. In this case, I can happily say
a positive experience.
There's positive consequences, and it feels good to think about that now.
I don't think any, and again, you didn't know. I mean, at the beginning, it just made sense while you're having a conversation. Yeah. It's like,
why not?
Yeah, why aren't they giving them prizes? They're giving the prizes to everybody else. Can't you give them? They train all year long. That's not an easy task for them. They do the whole marathon. It's Heartbreak Hill for them, too.
Yeah.
And so, oh, that's good. See, now we know what that, I remember that. And you just triggered it when you started talking about it. I'm like, I remember that.
Yeah, it was me and my big mouth.
That got you into it. Well,
that got me into trouble with my boss, too. Almost cost me my job.
How many people worked on, when you were on, I mean, it seemed like, and I listened often, it seemed like there were lots of people that were part of that show.
The Big Mattress?
Yeah.
Charles had a crew of, I'd say, 10, 12 people, all doing things, doing research, people doing production, people writing up bits and comedy bits, which was fun. As far as the newsroom, it was me there. I would have one person helping me out and gathering stories, what have you. My day would start at 4:30 in the morning, get in there, and there it was.
Read all the papers, find out everything. We didn't have the internet, so.
Newspapers, listening to other stations to see what they were reporting, and making sure I had everything. Because before I did anything, I really didn't care if the other stations had the story. If I didn't have it, if I couldn't confirm it, I wouldn't air it.
Now, you just recently did this, they did this Zoom reunion for WBCN.
Yes.
And you were part of that.
I was part of it. I pretty much kept quiet because there were so many people had so many BCN stories to tell. I wanted to share mine, but it didn't feel like there was enough time for me to share my stories. And I figured they wanted to hear what Charles had to say, Ken Shelton, all the disc jockeys had to say. It's like, oh, he's just a news person. Like, well, I don't really have to say. But that's all right. Yeah,
but you were there a long time. That's a long time to have one job in that business, other than if you're the, Charles Laquadere.
Yeah.
Other than that, people, there was movement. People get a better job. They hear about a job opening, and they go off and apply to another job. Boston has a lot of radio stations. They have radio stations that claim they're in Boston, but they're really not. But they claim, they're pushing for that Boston market.
Yeah.
A lot of advertising dollars out there, car dealers, furniture companies, people that advertise. So it was a big market that generated a lot of money.
Yeah. And so, again, I'm just grateful for the time I had.
Sure, that's a long time.
I had the time of my life. It was so much fun. If I had my choice, I would still be there, but unfortunately, CBS, which is no longer in the radio business, pulled the plug on the station.
Right.
That was a place I call my home.
Yeah, of course.
For me, that was home. All the people I work with, they're like my family to me. They're still my brothers and sisters,
And who'd have thought that would end? I mean, look at AAF. Who would think that would end? I mean, that was a station that had built, had high ratings. But I guess at some point it gets expensive for them to be able to do it, and then they can't. You run into a recession where you're not generating as many dollars. All of a sudden you start cutting back until there's nothing to cut back, and then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, we'd like to buy the station," and off it goes. I mean, that's the unfortunate part of the
one constant
business.
thing about this field, this business, is change. And sometimes changes are made for the better, and you like the changes, you're happy with the changes. Sometimes those changes are not for the better, at least in my mind.
Sure.
And you have to roll with the punches. You have to live with those changes. And I've seen both ends of that where there have been good times and changes that say, thanks for your service, but we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
That's happened to me on more than one occasion where once I'm off the air, the boss wants to see you.
And
and I called in and I go, oh, okay, it's that time again. So
it's part of the business,
It's part of the business, so you learn and live with it. And I say, okay, thanks for your time. And I just get my stuff and go.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if you were to interview tomorrow morning, you get on the air, turn it on at 6.
Yeah.
Transmitter's on, everything's ready to go, and you get a phone call. And they say, Sherman, you can interview anybody you want. Anybody. And we're going to set it up at 6 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we're going to have it all set up. Who would that person be?
Oh, God, there's so many people I've been lucky to interview.
Yeah.
One of my childhood heroes, Ernie Harwell, to think the legendary voice of the Detroit Tigers, who called the games for 40 years, to think I could interview him not once but twice.
Right.
The second time I interviewed him was when I was working on a project for the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson entering Major League Baseball. In fact, today is Jackie Robinson Day, Major League Baseball.
Right. Yeah.
And Ernie called games for the Brooklyn Dodgers back then.
Ooh.
Back in the 40s. In fact, the story about Ernie calling baseball games was the Brooklyn Dodgers needed someone to call the games because the guy who was calling the games became ill. They needed someone to finish the season.
He popped in.
And so they saw Ernie Harwell. So the Dodgers contacted, are you ready for this, a team called the Atlanta Crackers. They said, we need Ernie to do our games. The Crackers said, well, we need a catcher. And so they made a trade. The Crackers got a catcher. The Dodgers got Ernie to call their games.
That's the best.
And the rest is history. I kid you not, that is a true story.
If you go to YouTube, there's still some, what do they call them, radio checks or whatever, that you can catch some of the things on there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah,
and thousands of people would listen by radio. And still, I'll listen to your station, I'll listen to the Red Sox, and I'll listen to all sports, because I don't get time to actually watch anything. So it's always kind of in the background.
I've been very fortunate, the people I've talked to. Ernie Harwell is one. Another person I had a chance to talk to when I was in New York, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers.
Come on.
Yes.
You got to interview
I
him?
got to interview Fred Rogers.
Come on, that's the best.
And my daughter is a witness to this.
Really?
Because, yes, because I had a chance to talk with him for 30 minutes, made a program out of it.
Wow.
And I recorded the program and had it on cassette. When I came back to Boston, I gave her a cassette of the interview I did with Fred Rogers, who even to this day, and now she's living in Pittsburgh, but she still calls him neighbor.
Do you still have the tape?
She has the tape.
She has it. You got to play that on the radio somewhere.
She has the tape of the interview with neighbor, and it got to be crazy because here I am in bed trying to sleep, and
she's hitting you over the head with the cassette recorder.
I hear the interview on full blast. My wife and I are going crazy, like, why did you have to give her that? I said, I didn't know this was going to happen.
Yeah, I didn't know she was going to like it this much.
Yeah, I didn't know she'd like it that much, but you'd hear it once. It comes to an end. She rewinds the thing right from start to finish to hear it a second time.
That's a big deal.
A third time.
I would like to hear that.
Then a fourth time. By the time the fourth time it's done, she's finally asleep.
Yeah. I never would have thought that you would like somebody like that. Must have been an interesting.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I felt like a kid. I can understand. And what you heard was what you saw.
Really?
He was the real deal. Very quiet,
calm,
soft-spoken, very reassuring. He would tell me about Saturday Night Live, where he was there when Eddie Murphy was doing his biz. Mr. Robinson, Mr. Robinson's gentleman. It's a day in the neighborhood. And once that bit was done, guess who's backstage waiting for Eddie Murphy?
Was it him?
He
didn't know it? They set it up?
They didn't know it.
I hope they had cameras on that one.
And it'd be like, Eddie, it's me, Mr. Rogers. And Eddie, he said Eddie was about to die.
Yeah. You remember, what's important is, I was reading an article about Saturday Night Live, and they were saying that they have to be careful on who they sort of do their bits on, because at one time, their audience, was huge, and everybody knew who they were talking about.
Yeah.
So if it was Bill Clinton, they knew Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And then, but we've changed generations, and so you got to be careful, because some people they put on there, people like, I don't know who that is. So they had a good time picking on, President Trump. But at the time, everybody knew Mr. Rogers. Everybody knew Eddie Murphy. Yeah. That was probably the largest audiences at the time. Was then. So when he went back there, that must have been hilarious to catch him back there.
It was hilarious just to hear him tell me about it. And
did they go back out on stage after? Or something?
No, they didn't go back on stage, as far as I know. But just the fact that they were there, he told me about Eddie gave him a hug, and he was almost in tears, going, "I'm sorry." And
you were my favorite while I was growing up.
And he was real good about it. He understood, he appreciated everything, because he knew it was in fun, and it was genuine, it was honest, and not trying to mock him, which he appreciated. And
look at the guy's been gone for I don't know how many years, Mr. Rogers.
I know.
Still putting books out and movies and everything else. Untarnished, right? I mean, very few people that make it through the industry untarnished.
Right. And I remember the movie with Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
I went back to see that movie 3 times after seeing it the first time. Wow. And I would say, if you have a chance to see it, watch it.
It's that good. I haven't seen it.
To me,
you should have went with your daughter.
To me, well, she's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
she's in
true.
Pittsburgh. And who would have thought that she would actually move to Pittsburgh?
Listen, I know people that on Christmas Day would dress up as Santa and drive all the way to Pittsburgh. So that's not that far, you know.
You had to remind me of that.
That's not that far, to go all the way.
You had to remind me. Oh, okay, since you mentioned, I'll share that with people. All right, very, very quickly, because I don't know how much time we have.
It's my favorite story.
2015, I drove down to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to see my daughter and my grandkids. At the time...
After working?
After working, actually, after working, I went down Christmas Eve, drove down nonstop, and I took my time driving, and I'm wearing a Santa suit. And I'm driving down the pike, Interstate 84 to Connecticut, make my first stop in New York State, get out to get something to eat. I'm wearing a Santa suit. People are going like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you wearing a Santa suit?
I know him.
Like, what's wrong with you? And so everything's okay there. Then another stop in New York. Then I get to Pennsylvania, which is a big state. So Interstate 80, then eventually to Route 99, a state road. and there are these restaurants called Sheets restaurants,
gas station,
gas station, open round the clock, 24/7. And so I go into one Sheets. It's around 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm still making the ride there, and there are a couple of state troopers who are looking at me in Sheets. They're saying something other than Sheets.
Yeah,
they're saying,
what they were saying.
Bleep, like, who in the hell is this guy, and what does he think he's doing? And so they look at me. I get some coffee, a sandwich. I get back in the car. And I'm back on the road. And wouldn't you know it, these troopers are following me for 50 miles on the way to Pittsburgh. Finally, they give up and go, all right, maybe he's not going to cause any trouble. When I get to the neighborhood, it's about 6:30 Christmas morning. There are already people out and about going places to see churches, or going to see family for Christmas breakfast and just open presents. And wouldn't you know it, I get out of the car. I got 2 bags. One is toys and things for the grandkids, and then another one with groceries, because I told my daughter I was going to get some produce because there are things she likes as far as fruits and veggies, like, let's see, all kinds of veggies and artichokes. She loves artichokes. She can't get enough of artichokes. So I got those and all the other stuff. So I'm lugging 2 bags on my back while I'm walking up the steps dressed as Santa, and there are people looking at me like, Jesus Christ, there really is a Santa. Actually, the language more like, holy bleep, there really is such a thing as Santa Claus. And they see me walking up the steps towards the house, and the neighborhood stops and goes, Santa, 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 Santa. This is funny. I'm loving this. And wouldn't you know it?
This is a surprise. She doesn't know you're coming.
She doesn't know I'm coming. And suddenly there's a light that comes on from the house, because they're already opening up their presents, but they're looking like, what the heck's going on? And my older brother happens to be there.
Oh, yeah?
He sees me coming,
know that part.
and he's laughing his head off because he knew I was coming. They weren't expecting me.
Right.
But the kids are going like, Mom, you're not going to believe this. There's this guy out there in his car. He's got these 2 bags of stuff. This crazy man is heading this way, says one grandkid. The other grandkid says, oh, Jesus Christ. That's not just a crazy man. That's Grandpa.
Yeah, crazy Gramps.
What the heck is he doing? And so, Santa, Santa. I get to the door. The door is open, but they're not going to let me in or anything, or even say hello. I go, can I come in? They say, I don't know. You're scaring us. But what about all the stuff I got in these bags?
Hey, you just drove 14 hours to get there.
I just drove 570 miles to get here. Yeah. They say, well, just leave the bags there and go. Then eventually I come in, they look at me like, why did you dress up like this?
Yeah, they're a little like, Dad's lost it.
What's wrong with you? Even my daughter's going like, Dad, are you crazy?
Dad lost it.
And my older brother is laughing his head off. He's loving every minute of this. And something he said to me, which is true, and that is, you don't know what you've done to them. You don't know what you've done for them. You've given them a memory that's going to last their lifetime.
All right, listen to this. I remember the days in studio with Erin Hamlin of the USA Luge team.
Oh. Wow, yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
People are paying attention.
Yeah.
They know what's going on. Yeah. Just in case you're just joining us, we've got 5 minutes left. I got to do some updates here.
Sure.
And Sherman is with us from WPKZ, and a radio station that covers this whole area here. He's been in the business his entire life. It's what he does. He does it well. And you can listen to him at 1280 and 105.3 in the morning on the FM.
1280.
And do we have slides today? Let me see if I can do this real quick. Let's see. Here we go. So this is as of yesterday. New numbers will be coming in soon, but 115,000 people were tested yesterday. 2,000 people, or roughly 2,000 people tested positive. 257 in Worcester County. 14 deaths. 1 is too many. Right now in Leominster, we're up 184. The average age of those hospitalized is 59. There are 4,000 beds in Massachusetts. There are 711 people right now who are fighting the battle, and 159 in intensive care. Vaccine distribution beginning on Monday. Anyone over the age of 16 will be able to get online and register themselves an appointment. So that's the next pivotal date. We have another vaccine clinic set up for tomorrow. Right now, and I know this number is higher, but 75% or 76% of those 75 and older have gotten one dosage. Those 65 to 74 is 73%, and 35% of Leominster has been vaccinated. That's above the state average. That's above where we were last week, but I'm sure that's even up even more. So far, 5,511,000 vaccines have come to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Total number of people that were vaccinated is around 1.9 million, 1.8 million. We want to hear from you if you've had a difficult time. You know somebody with a language barrier, somebody that's had a difficult time, elderly, disabled, whatever it might be, some sort of special needs, and let us know at vaccine@leominster-ma.gov, and we'll sign them up for a vaccine. We're partnering with Healthcare for All to help us to reach those hardest to reach, and we have a $150,000 grant. We've just hired somebody to help us to make that connection between the state and those nonprofits that will be helping us to connect with those that are hardest to reach. There's the qualifications for the vaccine coordinator. It's a lot of work. It's a traffic manager, really, connecting all the different agencies, nonprofits here in the community, churches, wherever we have to find those that are hardest to reach, that's where we're going. We have a state homebound vaccination program right now, 844-771-1628. If you're having a hard time and you can't get out of the house, whatever it might be, but you're homebound, 1-844-771-1628. There's our projects, the skate park, Mass Works, FEMA grant, Route 13 underway, Route 12 near the hospital project, $8 million, going out to bid in September. Safe Routes to School, it's about $1 million, 1.1, that'll be going out to bid at the end of this year. And the Woodblock grant, which is almost $500,000 by the time you add the city money to it. And then the fire department received a $30,000 grant for their new gym. Unfortunately, the fishing derby at Barrett is full. Hydrant flushing continues tomorrow. Mandatory odd even restrictions in our water. We'll talk more about that. And yard waste pickup. Get out there when you catch a nice day. Pick it all up. May 28th is the last day. And the 15th is the citywide yard sale. And let's see. Do we have any pictures of the week? Cleanup is April 22nd to the 21st, which means you don't have to do it any one particular day. You can do it after work. You can do it on a Saturday afternoon, whatever it takes. Give us a call at City Hall, 978-534-7500, extension 0. Ocean State, they had a little bucket there. They asked you if you want to make a donation to the local emergency management schools, whatever it might be, for PPEs. They came through. They donated 2 pallets filled with PPEs that we're sharing with schools, public safety, nursing homes. Anybody that needs it, give us a call at City Hall. We have the first, yes, Sharon, we have the designation of planting the first flowers of the season, and we did it this year. Wendy came in and planted the first pansies weeks ago. In fact, it snowed after that, but that's okay. They look great. We are signing a $150,000 grant there for the Vaccine Equity Alliance. There's our meeting with Rollstone Bank on the Moosnock Brook, and exactly how we're going to do some repairs to that. We had a meeting in there, and they let us use their Zoom. There's our clinic center, very organized, and a tip of the hat to everyone involved. I don't have time to name everybody, but every single one of our clinics have been smooth, helpful, and it's got nothing but rave reviews. So that's just a picture of that. And I'll tell you, we did Happy Easter, and we planted those downtown. I'll tell you, there were people there day and night taking pictures. You know, it's amazing. Sometimes you do something, like you were talking about that story about the wheelchair. We put those out there. It was like we gave free tickets to the Super Bowl to everybody. We did our 300th morning update last week. Today is 307 right now, but our 300th morning briefing, and that was last week, 300. And work underway at Route 13, so be patient while you're out there. Work continues on the Monument Park. That'll be done at the end of May. Heaters we put out to all the businesses that wanted to do outdoor dining. We lent them to businesses. We only have a few left. And there's our renovations underway at 210 Lancaster Street for the fire department that took the building over, and they're doing a remarkable job in there. They'll use it for community activities. They'll put their offices in there. It's 100% handicap accessible, and they'll also use it for training. There we are at Haley's with Secretary Kennelly. He visited the city yesterday, and anyway, we had a Zoom meeting with the kids at Northwest School. thank you for coming on. We wanted to get you on for a long time. Thank you. We're out of time here at Inside Leominster. Good night. God bless you. Remember, the world is run by those who show up. You got to show up. Thank you.
Inside Leominster is brought to you in part through the generous support of N.P. Crowley Company Incorporated and by Landmark Self-Storage in Leominster. www.landmarkselfstorage.com